It's time for Cutting Edge Consciousness with Freeman Michaels and Barnet Bain. Thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And we're back here on Cutting Edge Consciousness. Freeman Michaels here with my co-host Barnet Bain, talking today to Janet Attwood, the author of The Passion Test. And we are talking specifically about how passion is, we meet with these little obstacles, these ways that our passion can get shot off the road or blocked or seemingly interrupted. And Janet, there's something about this that is really important, how we stay focused, how we move through the challenges.
Yeah, and Barnet was saying right before we disconnected for a minute for your ads, what's a passion? He mentioned a passion stealer.
Yeah.
And I said, Barnet, what do you mean a passion stealer? And he said, those people that, like the naysayers. And Barnet, I want to address this differently, though.
Mm-hmm.
I've traveled all over the world. This year I didn't even need a house to live in. The Passion Test is growing so fast. We have over 1,000 facilitators of the Passion Test program in 44 countries and growing. And what I found when I go out and I give my programs is that the number one thing that gets in the way of anyone living a passionate life is not what someone else says, it's what
you say.
Yeah, you got it, that's it.
Yeah.
What you say to yourself, your own self-talk. That's the number one thing that gets in the way of anyone living a passionate life, are false ideas, false concepts, false beliefs. And, that's something for all of us to take a look at, because it's just a thought in the mind. I'm not good enough. Is it true? I don't have enough money. Is it true? And you really take a look at all the blocks that we put in front of ourselves, and they're like it's like a massive brick wall that will stop you every time from living your passions. And who does that but your own self? And there may be people, and it's really good. I know you agree with me that it's really important to hang out with people that are your cheering squad. Team, together everyone achieves miracles, absolutely. And yet, life is life, and there are going to be people that go, really?
Yes, you're so right.
That book?
You're so right. But it starts within. It starts in the personal inside chatter.
Yeah.
Both Freeman and I.
Yeah.
We are very much involved in a community in Southern California that is very creative and very passionate. And there are times when that passion, when what appears to be legitimately the fires of passion, is more accurately a self-indulgent or addictive behavior, or sometimes it's what my friends who study in the Native American traditions refer to as trickster energy. So there are times when we, like a hound, we pick up the scent of a false trail and pretend that is passion. I haven't heard you speak to that point, and so I want to invite you to do that now.
Well, what I love about the Passion Test is we tell people, in the Passion Test, what we do is we have people make a list of passions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they could be anything like, when my life is ideal, I am traveling the world, uplifting the humanity. When my life is ideal, I am, out, gardening. When my life is ideal, I'm spending quality time with those I love, blah, blah, blah. Thinking about all the different areas of their life. And, here's what's so cool about the Passion Test. Your passions are like breadcrumbs that lead you onto the path of your destiny. So for anyone, it's okay. You start where you start. But here's the thing. You may start out with, these passions that, as you said, aren't really, they aren't really the gut of it. They aren't really the passion, but it doesn't really matter. Because once you start to ask yourself, what do I care about? What lights my fire? What turns me on? What would move my world to the end of my life? It won't go away. It's like a virus that lives inside of you. And as you start to choose in favor of the things that you think you care most about, you'll find out, oh, whoops, next, because life is all about evolution. And eventually what you find is you are there. You're there at the door of what it is that you're most passionate about. And that door leads you to, what it is that you really have a purpose on earth to do. And it's inevitable for you to get that, to go to that place. So that's why we always say, start from where you are. Start from where you are.
Yeah, and I think that, tracking back to something that Barnet said, these parts where we recognize we've been hurt, wounded, disappointed before, that have really interrupted the energetic flow of our lives moving forward. Part of what happens with this passion test and this orientation, and even the way they're sort of delineated, these top 5 things, how we tease them out using your process, is that there's a new context for picking up the pieces. So whereas, someone might say, oh, I need to heal to move on in my life, this is a new imperative. You need to, with this sense of what you're moving on to, it's a new context for picking up the pieces. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm trying to get there. Yes, I'm just playing with you. I'm sorry, Barnett knows this. I'm a 24/7 joke, and really, I'm really trying to censor most of them because I know this doesn't have very much time going on here. Here it is. I mean, it's a really simple thing. To the extent that you know who you are, you'll be able to get clear on the things that you're most passionate about. But for everyone, that's why we say start where you are, because what is so beautiful that Barnett, this is so cool. I've never told you this. When I first, I always say I downloaded the passion test. When the passion test just, became alive in me, and I was, figuring out for me, I was writing down things when my life is ideal. I'm a New York Times bestselling author, and I'm a, great speaker, and blah, blah, blah. What I didn't know, which was really the most cool thing about the passion test, is that it taught me what self-love really was. And it really did heal me, because every time you say yes to the things that you deeply care about, deeply love, those things that you can hardly admit to yourself because they're so delicate, they're so personal, they have so much, meaning to them that, God forbid, if they didn't happen, it would be so painful. Every time you say yes to that, you're saying yes to your own self-love. And for all of those of you that are listening to this program, the secret to living a passionate life is simply this, and it's so sweet. Whenever you're faced with a choice, a decision, or an opportunity, choose in favor of your passion.
That's beautiful. You answered a question, or rather, your answer brought up a question that you already answered. Does that make sense? It's a isn't that a passionate, juicy answer?
I looped it, didn't I?
You looped it so beautifully. As you were speaking, I thought, wow, we talked before about passion stealers, mostly self-talk, and you answered the question, well, what are passion healers? It's that internal weather vane that follow, where you hew to the direction of what stirs your heart and what lights up your soul, and you make choices aligned to that. It feeds fuel to your passions. It burns the fire even brighter.
Well, yeah, and it's not just fuel to your passions; it's fuel to your own inner self-love,
your
self-worth,
self-respect, self-confidence.
Yeah. And here's the thing. The funny thing is that it's. I said it earlier. It's a do less, accomplish more path. Because notice when you're not living your passions, and notice how your life works. Just notice. This is all about being conscious, a conscious creator. That's what we call them. That when you're not living what you this little voice says, but I love to do this, I love this. No. I love to do this, I love, no.
No.
Yeah, how many of us have heard of, like the billionaire that jumped out of a building because he was so depressed? And that's because, really, he wasn't even honoring what it was that he cared about. And when we're not doing that, we get little we get little kicks at first, and then we get little smacks, and the next thing we know, we're sick or we're ill, or our relationships are falling apart, or we end up in the hospital. And we hear the person that laid in the hospital for a month and then finally went, oh, my God, what was wrong with me? I could die tomorrow. All right, that's it, damn it. I'm going to live my passion.
Yeah. And what you're speaking to, from my perspective, is really noticing the feedback system. Because, Barnett and I are pretty smart guys. You're a very smart woman. And for those of us that are intelligent, that can work things out in our head, we begin to rely on that. And look, it can be a head trip. I mean, what Barnett was speaking of earlier with the dream stealers is that this can often be our own little crafty ways of keeping the construct in place, right? But this part about how our bodies won't let us off the hook, the activating that heart and being able to say, wow, I really want this part aspect of me to lead more in my life. That's the stuff that changes the game.
It's so true. I mean, it's just following your inner GPS, right?
Yes.
So, about your inner GPS, what is the most important thing that you do each day?
Meditation. I've been practicing transcendental meditation for over 40 years. Yes, I know I'm only 42. Everybody.
I know you're only 41.
Major babe material. Anyway, go ahead.
But you've also surrounded yourself with a community of people. So we go back to something you said, where yes, you meditate.
You become who you're with.
But you've also surrounded yourself in a way that's quite unique. Can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, well, I live in a community. I actually live in your favorite vacation spot, Fairfield, Iowa, a home of over 2,000 meditators from all over the world. And what's so neat about this community, and they all do TM twice a day. There's these big golden domes where 2,000 people twice a day. It's the only time you're going to see traffic in Fairfield, Iowa. 7 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock in the afternoon are going to these big, gigantic domes, and they enter them in silence, and they sit and they do their long meditation programs. And Oprah, by the way, name dropping, was just there 4 months ago because she learned TM. Now I've been told that all 300 of Harpo are meditating together twice a day on a regular basis because she found that it created so much coherence in her. She wanted it for her company.
Well, and these studies have been done with people in prison. I know you've done some work with people in prison. Huge impact on the recidivism rate and the violence in prisons.
Oh, it's so exciting. I just got back last week. Marcy Shimoff, who's one of my very best friends, and Barnett, Marce. She's a New York Times author as well of Happy for No Reason. And she and I went to this benefit that David Lynch put on to honor this man named George Shapiro. I think you might know who he is. He's an agent. And he's just an incredible guy. But all the money was being raised, and this was at the Beverly Wilshire, for kids to learn transcendental meditation because they're finding so much positive results. The kids are, they stop bullying. They have, higher self-esteem. Their ability to, be able to focus is better. They're happier. They're getting along with each other. I mean, it's exciting. And, it was interesting. Jay Leno was there. Who else? I mean, all of these.
Russell Brand, I think,
was there. Yeah, all these whoosies, along with, in there to support David Lynch and what he's doing. I went to one last time. Ellen DeGeneres was there. I always say her name wrong. And and
she's going to call you.
Eastwood was there, and you could just say it. They're all coming out and they're going, we've been meditating for 40 years.
And what it really connotes is training one's attention.
Well, what it really connotes is, it's training. I'd say, meditation, transcendental meditation, utilizes the natural tendency of the mind to go within. So it's not even, you don't even need to train yourself. With the way that the technique is taught, it's easier to go within than it is to do anything else. And once you learn this really effortless practice, boy, talk about just enjoying what inner silence is all about. And Barnett, now you know me. I have massive energy. I have so much energy, it's like 2 lifetimes packed in one body. And I thought, God, I'm going to be the only person on the planet who won't be able to meditate. And I really felt that way. But the practice, okay, I got to tell you, if it works for me, anyone listening, if you're afraid you're too hyper energetic out in the world, it'll get you too.
You can meditate. You can be as calm as Janet.
Yeah, right. As calm as I am.
I have to. I don't know if I've ever shared this with you. When I was in the 10th grade, my dad. We lived a couple hours in up north of Montreal in the Laurentians in a small town, and I don't know how my dad, who was the local butcher, I don't know how he came to discover TM.
Yay!
But he drove us. My sister and I was in the 10th grade, she was in the 11th grade. He drove us from our little town all the way into Montreal to take the TM course. And I will never forget receiving my mantra and suddenly dropping into an altered state, consciously moving into an altered state for the first time in my life. I will never, ever forget that experience at 15.
Here's the real question. Did your dad, continue being a butcher after that?
He did, but he did it with...
He was a very mellow butcher after that.
He was a much more graceful
organic.
Butcher. He was yes.
All right, listen, before we let you go, Janet, let's find out what you're doing next. I know the website is thepassiontest.com.
Yeah, www.thepassiontest.com. And, this week I'm on my way to Dallas. I'm headlining at this huge event where about 2,000 people will be. It's called...
Is that the E-Women?
Yeah, E-Women.
Well, awesome. Say hello to Kim. And
I will. I absolutely will. But, I'm off. I'm here. Actually, I'm looking out. I'm in Marcy's house, Marcy Scheimoff's house, Barnet. And Marcy and I just leased this beautiful house in Marin where we're going to be giving private courses together, which is really fun. So we'll talk more about
and parties.
Yeah, and parties. And for those people listening, though, if you want to learn more about the Passion Test, but if you also want to find out where you are right now in living your passionate life, you can go to the Passion Test website. Again, it's www.thepassiontest.com, and just hit on take the profile. I think you can do it right from the website, and then it'll show you how you can go ahead and from there be able to find out what you're most passionate about.
Awesome.
Well, we are so grateful. We love having you on with us. We love you.
And we love all your passion.
We love your passion. You need to come out of your shell a little more, but we'll work on that.
I'm a little shy.
A little shy. Lots of love to you. And say hi to Mars as well for more information. If you didn't catch that address, you can also get it on the Cutting Edge Consciousness website. We'll have all of that material up as well.
And we'll be right back after these messages.